Hey, I'm going to keep this brief because my battery is honestly getting really low, so I got to talk fast. But I wanted to come on here and tell you about a big win that I had with a client last night in her online lesson. I mostly teach adults, but I do have a couple of kiddos. In this particular one, she's 7 years old. She'll be 8 in June, and she's like super duper mature and very conscientious and honestly has some really big perfectionist tendencies. And so we have to be very, very careful to keep her encouraged when things are a little rough, because she's starting to be able to tackle harder songs now, and that's been a little tough, to be honest, because it's not coming as easily as it used to. Anyway, that's a whole thing. But one of the things that I do with just about all of my clients is I give and receive feedback using three questions. And I do this almost every time, every repetition. It's almost like it's almost cliche sometimes, as many times as I do it. But I after a client sings something, I will ask, okay, what went well? And then follow it up with, what would you like to fix? And then follow it up again with something else that went well. And I do that very specifically because, for one, we tend to hyper focus on the negative things. We tend to really, really hone in on the things that are not going well, and then we don't pay enough attention to what is going well, because the things that are going well, those are the things that we want to keep. But if we don't know what is going well, we don't know what we want to keep. We only know what we want to change. And so I think that focus on the constant negatives leaves aside, like we don't see, we see the little tiny things that are wrong, and we don't see the giant, it's like looking at a painting and you see one little pencil hole in it. You don't see the enormous beauty that you just created with your voice. You just focus on that little pencil prick. And so if I do those questions, usually over time, my clients start to really be able to self-analyze their voice and be able to come up with solutions on their own. And that eventually works me out of a job, which is precisely what I want. Anyway, last night, I was working with this 7-year-old, and I've worked with her for over a year now. And so we're now getting to the point where she has really gained a lot of confidence with her voice. And one of the side effects of that is that she's singing a lot louder and she's singing a lot harder. We're still kind of feeling things out a little bit. And so last night, for the first time, we were singing the Rainbow Connection, and her voice cracked. And it really had never done that before. And so I did the thing. I asked her what went well, and I love her confidence, because she's like, I think everything went well. You got it. I think everything went well too. You did a great job. But then I followed it up with, okay, if you had another shot at it, what's something you'd like to do better? And she mentioned, well, she didn't have the words for it exactly, because that had never happened. And so she said, well, we got to this part and my voice did this. And I'm like, you're right, it did. So what did it feel like when that happened? And so she was able to put some language to it. We kind of explored that a little bit. And then we talked a little bit about how, her voice might be going through a little micro growth spurt, because she's actually getting taller and her voice is changing just a tiny little bit. She sounds less like a preschooler than she did a couple years ago. Anyway, and so her voice might be growing a little bit, but we also talked about how sometimes, I actually use the analogy of the three bears. You can do like mama bear, where things are too soft, too quiet, too, squishy, whatever. You can do papa bear, things are too hard, too hot, too whatever. And then we have baby bear, just right. And so I asked her, okay, what do you think was happening there? Was it mama bear, papa bear, baby bear? And so she was able to say, okay, that was more papa bear. That wasn't really it. And so we explored a little bit. We tried, okay, what would it sound like if you sang this mama bear? And so she was able to, explore some breathiness or some, she actually did kind of a high squeaky voice. It was kind of cute. And then, okay, so what do we need to do to get it to that baby bear just right spot? And we were able to explore. We really got it. But the thing that I loved with her is that while I obviously heard her voice crack and I knew we needed to address it, especially since it was the first time it had ever happened, we could really, kind of, cut off any future problems at the pass. Um, she was the one that really led the way with that, because I asked the questions that I always ask, what went well, what do you need to do, and all that stuff. She was able to self identify what was not quite working, put language behind it, and then we were able to really work on it with her terms. And I loved it because she was able to put the words around it to give a description of her experience so I could really understand what she was experiencing from her side of things. And I didn't have to tell her what she was experiencing. She's a young singer. She's only 7 years old, but she's really already starting to learn that self-awareness. And I've had to really cultivate that in her in the last year and a half. And so, we've been playing the long game here, and I just want to encourage you, as my battery keeps getting lower and lower and lower, I just want to encourage you that, don't give up on those pedagogical goals too fast. It may just take some time for some of your clients to really get to the point where they can take control of their own voices. I find this especially more difficult with older clients who really have had voice lessons with that master apprentice kind of model. I had the same kind of issue where I would go into a voice, not issue, but the same kind of situation where generally I would go into a voice lesson, I would sing something, my teacher would tell me what was wrong and how to fix it, and then I would sing it again and do that. And so I didn't learn how to self-evaluate my own voice for a really long time. And it took a long time for me to gain the confidence to know that I really was the expert of my own voice. And so older clients who have come through that kind of a model, it can be difficult for them to take ownership and know that they are the expert of their own voice. And so those 3 questions, I have annoyed more than one older client with it. And by older, I mean like 30 years old and older, not 7 years old. I have annoyed a lot of singers, when I keep asking these questions, and more than one of them has, just flat out like, just tell me what, because you're the expert. I'm like, no, you are actually the expert. You are the one that's living with your voice. I am the observer of your voice, but you are the actual expert. And so I just want to encourage you to, if you've got those pedagogical goals like I have had with my clients, to stick with them. It may take some time, but they can really bear fruit. And when you get those breakthroughs, oh, they can be so fun. We had so much fun last night in her session. So if you have a pedagogical issue in your studio, or a question that maybe you're a little too embarrassed to ask in the forums, I am your girl. I would love to help you think through, whatever questions you've got with your clients, and help you make a plan for how to tackle those and how to deal with them. I would love to do that. I put a link to book an individual consult in the description of this video. But if you have had a win in your studio, tell me about it. Put it in the comments here so that we can celebrate with you, because it's been a long few weeks since I've had a really good breakthrough like that, and just, it can feel like a slog sometimes, just kind of doing the thing and, keep building the foundation and all that stuff. So I would love to hear what your wins have been recently too. All right, I'm gonna go plug in my phone before it totally dies. I will see you all later. Have a fantastic afternoon. Bye.